Yeah. Okay, we're live, Dean. Welcome, and thank you for making the time coming to this episode in the High Vibe community. And well, we started a little bit later than we said we would, just because of internet, Bali Wi-Fi, right? That's we all know how it is in Bali. So if for people watching this, if anything happens, if we break out, connection get lost, I'm sorry for that. I'm just gonna try again at a different time. But for now, it seems to work. So yeah, let's just get started. And well, Dean, welcome again. Yeah, this is the first live I'm gonna do only for High Vibe, and High Vibe is the community that we built for personal development, personal spiritual development, actually. And well, you are an expert on that topic. I got to know you in Ubud a couple years ago, and find it very inspiring. Also, always to listen to you, to work with you, to see what you are doing, and that's why I thought it would be awesome to get you on this episode and talk a bit more about what is it you do, about your journey, about your own spiritual growth, and hopefully it's going to be an inspiration for people to learn and grow themselves from. Your quick recap: we met 2 years ago, I think, in Ubud with the men's circle, Manhood Ubud, men's circle that you have been running there for a while now. You've been doing it for quite a long time, and at the moment we're also having branches in Perth and Southwest Australia, and I think you were trying to set it up on other places in the world as well. You're an author. You wrote. I have one of your books in Ubud on the bookshelf about addiction. You're basically you help couples with relationships. You're intuitive. You're a healer. You have so many traits. I think it's a long list. So maybe it's better that you just introduce yourself. Tell to the people who are listening, because I know it all, but I think people who are watching this want to know who Dean Powell is.
Hey, it's breaking up a lot again. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can hear me okay? Great.
Yeah, I can hear you okay.
It was about 2 years ago that we met in men's circle, and I've been running them in Ubud Bali for about 5 or 6 years, and then I was running them in Perth and in Western Australia for quite a few years as well. Mostly from when I was in the addiction centre, I started running men's circles there, and then joined a few circles. So my favourite things that I get to do is as men's circles, and then also bringing men together and run mixed circles, because I think there's also some real gold that happens there. So it's really nice to be here. Sorry about the Wi-Fi, guys. It's just one of the things here at Bali. It's out of our hands sometimes. I hope it's coming through okay. I hope you can hear me okay.
We can hear you. Yeah. So that's about the men's circle. What else are you working on at the moment? Because you have, like you said, we put the bio in the description of the live feed. So you work as a couples coach for relationship coaching. You try to help people find inspiration within, and you're all about self-empowerment. Can you tell a bit more about what that means for you? What do you mean with self-empowerment and finding inspiration within?
So a lot of the work I do is based on trauma that we experience in early childhood, and then how that trauma reflects into our adulthood and mostly relationships. So I do relationships coaching. I work with a lot of childhood trauma. I work with addictions. I specialize in addictions because it also surfaces and shows up as addictions in a lot of cases, and definitely for me in my case. So I'm addicted to methamphetamines and alcohol and a number of other things for a long time. The work that I do, I love talking about elephants in the room. It's one of my favorite things, because a lot of the times we hide things and we pretend things aren't there, and everybody tiptoes around and walks around on eggshells, and that's kind of how I was raised, how I had to live my childhood, with
your mother's Dutch, right?
My mum is Dutch.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
maybe that comes from that
Winterswijk.
part. Come from your Dutch lineage. That we just addressed the elephant in the room. We're not afraid to talk about the Dutch directness.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I love
you're
that. I
saying
said
that
that to the other day. I love that about the Dutch.
Yeah, it is. So what how do you approach that? So if you work with people and you just dive in and talk about the elephant in the room.
Yeah, and mostly, just so working with, especially in couples situations, relationships, so like actually working out what it is that's not working and just working it, and not even necessarily. Sometimes I don't even have to do anything, or we don't do anything with it. Sometimes it's just bringing it out into the light, talking about it, and naming it, and then sometimes there's gold that happens from there where people go, oh, that's what it looks like. I can do something with that, or I can put that there, or I know what it looks like. It's okay now. Whereas when it's inside and it's mixed up with everything else, like it becomes like this quagmire of murkiness that like is really hard to define and hard to do anything with. And then we start to run stories about maybe I'm not good enough and I'm just useless at relationships and I'm not meant to be in a relationship and I don't know how to manage myself and all of that. The stories that come up.
So you mentioned something about addressing also childhood traumas with people and the relationship with addiction. Do you think that's your experience is that there is a relationship between those two?
Yeah, definitely. So I think everybody's heard that cheesy statement, you can only have a relationship with somebody else to the degree you can have one with yourself. But there's a lot of truth in that. Like I had no idea how to have a relationship with myself, or even what that would look like, or how to connect with my inner child, and how to and even connect with my inner child, like metaphorically, but also even how to talk to my child from childhood. Like how to connect with that kid that went through everything it went through. And then that definitely impacted my relationships because I was very disconnected in relationships. Like I was emotionally disconnected from myself. I didn't know how to experience emotion, how to process emotion. And how to sit with emotion. So I'd always, like I was kind of running on intellect and I was running on humor. I used humor was a big one for me where I'd avoid any intimacy by cracking jokes and any tense situation, like I'd crack jokes and I was really funny, but to the detriment of actually connecting and being intimate with people, So it definitely ruined a lot of relationships. So yeah, the childhood trauma, like actually understanding what I went through and a lot of what I was taught and what I was told as a child, that wasn't true, and that isn't my perception. It was my father's perception of you're an idiot, you're good for nothing, you're useless, you're, all of those messages that got drummed into me. And then I recognized I lived my life, proven right. And in the weirdest way, because I was intellectually, I was trying to prove them wrong. I was like, I'll never be like my dad. I'll be like I'll never be like my dad. And then I turned into my dad. I became my dad. And it was because I had so much unhealed trauma that I didn't know that I had to process, that I had to get through, and then
Yeah. So it sounds like you're using your own experience and you basically became an expert due experiences, and you're now helping other people in all sorts of life, overcome their own childhood trauma, their relationship with themselves, basically. How did it start? Can you go back, share a bit about the journey that you've been through? I know a little bit about it, but how did you get started? How did you become the person that you are today? Which traumas, which dilemmas did you have to overcome?
That's a really cool question, because I think all of it is, because of who I am today. Like, the fact that my dad was violent and angry, and I was telling some friends last night, I got the opportunity to ring my dad, but like before he died, and just speak to him, and I was in tears. I remember, like I'd just done this process that I get to do now with people, the quantum shift process, which just tidied everything from my life. And I rang my dad. I said, Dad, I just want you to know I'm so grateful for everything that you did. I'm grateful for the violence. I'm grateful for the abuse. Thank you for everything you did in my life, because you made me who I am today. and I get to make a difference in other people's lives, not because of you. There was silence on the phone for about 20 seconds. He didn't say anything. And then he finally said, well, it's about time some bastard thanked me. I just laughed. But when I went back to New Zealand, I think about 8 months later, my mum sat me down and she said, Dean, do you remember when you rang your dad that time? I said, yeah. She said, he would never, ever, ever tell you this because he doesn't know how. She said, but that meant so much to that man. And she said, I saw a shift in him that like you would never believe. Thank you so much for doing that. You know? And then he died. He got hit by a car not long after that. So it was kind of cool. So I understand, you know, like those things that I went through really set me up to be able to do what I do and to be able to have the understanding, the compassion, the comprehension of you know, of life and what can be. So I'm kind of grateful for everything. I am really grateful for everything I've been through. And, you know, like even became a junkie and an alcoholic, and I've lived a full life. You know, I was telling some friends the other day, I've done so many things in my life. Like I've been an addict, you know, like I've been in jail, I've been arrested, I've been an author, you know, like I've traveled, I've lived in other countries, I've been a dad. There's been so much that I've done in my life, and it's such a full life that, I'm grateful for all of it. And especially, I think the poignant moments for me were always feeling like I was out of my power, that I didn't have the power to change, you know, like to shift things, that I was always run by my past. I was always run by my dad's voice and all these other voices, you know, that continually negate, oh, you're an idiot. What did you say that for? Now they're not going to like you. And all of that, you know, that story that keeps going on and on and on. Until I remember I did this process, this kind of process with the workshop format. Actually, my partner, my ex-partner, the mother of my children, I was with for 20 years, she did it first. And after there was something so different. I remember just going, oh, she feels different. Like she sounds different. She feels different. She's like, it's almost lighter, you know, like I was like, what have you done? What's that? You know, what's going on? She told me about this weekend workshop she did. She asked me to come along with her, and they had a graduation night. And I said, yeah, I'll come, but I'm not doing it. I'm not into that, you know, cry, touchy-feely. I was a construction worker at the time, you know, I was, I'm so tough. Hadn't cried or since I was a little kid. And then I went to this night, and I remember thinking, wow, something feels really different about these people. Like there was a genuine happiness in the room. There was a genuine, like people were hugging each other and they were laughing and they were talking, but it felt so different to anything that I'd experienced, because I could feel there was a genuineness. They were open-hearted, you know, and I was like, wow, what's going on here? And then this guy got up and he talked, and first he mentioned God, and I was like, oh, here we go. I was brought up religious, you know, like, and then I left the church when I was 10, and that wasn't a good experience. But I always knew there was a bigger something, you know, something greater than me here, and orchestrating and designing things. So as soon as he mentioned God, I was like, oh, I'm out of here. But I sat there, and he said God as in grand organizing design. He said, because whatever it is that we're living here is grand, and it's always continually organizing from a micro to a macro scale. And it's an amazing design, you know, like everything again, micro, macro, internal, external scale. And I could really, really resonate with that. And then I was the first one to run up and sign up for this next weekend workshop, because it just sat so well with me. And honestly, it changed my life. Like my life did a complete 180. I sold my construction business long after that. I went and I knew I'd been a junkie, and this is like years after I'd been an addict. But I knew I'd been through it for a reason. So I just went and volunteered at a rehab center in Perth, at Holyoke for a few years, and then did all of their trainings, and I suddenly found a place where I really I fit there, you know, like where it was like it resonated, and then I felt like I was really useful, and then everything from my life seemed to fall into place to be you know, helpful to these people that I'm working with there. And I was running the men's program, and I helped in the partners program, the parents program, and the different programs they had there. So I got to have these perspectives of all the different people, which I'd already had anyway with my partner and my kids, you know, the way I'd been with them and treated them. So it was kind of like everything fell into place. Yeah, and I remember sitting even in the training, I remember there were these people with double degrees and doctorates, and I remember saying in the facilitation circle once, you know, like I feel really out of place, or I feel like you guys have got all these degrees, and you know, like I feel like I'm way out of my element. And they said, Dean, you've got something none of us could ever have. You've got all this, you know, like ground experience, this real life experience.
Yeah.
I really see how valuable that was, you know.
Life experience is I think way more valuable than what we learn in school and what degree we get, because that's only a little bit of what you are gonna be as a person. You know, who you grow it into being. So when was this training that you did?
Sorry, say that again, Michelle.
When was this training that you did? The first time that you experienced something?
So the
Because you said
training,
you were,
yeah, in Perth, it was a weekend workshop. Sorry, we're breaking up a lot. Like it's I'm just a question, so I hope you can hear me okay.
yeah, I can hear you. So basically, you were this tough guy, the construction worker. I had your own business. Had been a junkie before, and then basically your partner brought you to this eye-opening training.
And then shift everything for me, and then after I did that, like, and then we suddenly got on a lot better. Like it shifted. It's almost like somebody let me into this room of complete knowingness for a while, like for a few moments, like or they'd switched on a light in this dark room and showed me my life, and then turned it off again, and I was like amazed. I was tears, like I was crying and I was laughing simultaneously, and I was crying because, I mean, I'd made so much of my life about this one little story about my dad not loving me, and then not realize I'd spent my whole life trying to chase that love and fulfill that love, that void inside. You know, like, and I'd used all sorts of addictions and relationships and sex, and then I was laughing because it was so stupid, because it was so simple and stupid, and it was like, it was kind of funny, but. Yeah, it was with JB seminars. Mitchell J. Behan, amazing Irish guy in Perth, Western Australia. He runs them in Melbourne as well. I ended up working with them for a while. I love, because it was such a good process that I did all of their trainings and lunch trainings, and then flew to Melbourne and did some workshops with them in Melbourne and Perth, and worked with them for a few years. So yeah, just shifted everything. And this is one of the best things I get to do with people now as well, like one-on-one and via Skype. I do these sessions via Skype as well. Because it's like, people have said to me, man, that's like 30, 40 years of therapy in one session. My sister's wife actually said that to me, because she'd been going to see a psychotherapist every week for years. And she came at a session with me and cleared it in one session. And she was like, I've been working on that every single week for 20 years. She said, my God, like, how much have I spent, like time, money, energy, how much have I spent on that one thing, like, so I'd say it's a really powerful, amazing process, quantum physics technology. And it just, my life turned around after that. I had a complete 180, and yeah, it's been incredible. I got to change things because I'm a dad as well. Like I've got three older kids, sorry. I got one older that I only just met 10 years ago, and a grandson in New Zealand, but the other two that I had when I was still a junkie, like my son was born and while I was still using, so I was very present for him, and then I'd switched the drugs for the alcohol when my daughter was born, so I was an alcoholic, so I wasn't really that present for her, although we had a big connection because I actually got her, like delivered her in the bathroom of her home, so we had this connection. But then, I just raised them the way my dad raised me. Even I'd spent my whole life saying, I'll never be like my dad, I'll never be like my dad, I'll never be like my dad. And then I remember that, one day I had my son by the throat up against the wall, wanted to punch him in the face. He was 9 years of age. And I just remember in that moment I was so angry and wild, and I was like, what the fuck? What have I, what's happened? How did I turn into my dad? And that was the point that I really knew I needed help, and that I needed to shift, I needed to do something with my anger and the stuff that had bottled up inside of me. And then I was blessed to have another child, with the same, like where after we'd done these workshops, and we had Shaylee, and we named her Shaylee. We didn't know what we were going to name her for quite a while, because we were going through her names. We were going to call her Alicia. Kind of didn't sit right, and then just before Bev gave birth, actually, my friend was talking to a friend in India, and he said Shaylee, and we were like, oh my God, Shaylee. So we named her Shaylee Alicia Powell. And then we found out later, like about a year later, actually, I think that Shaylee means gift from God, and she was literally a gift from God. It was like for me a second chance to be a dad, because I'd certainly done all this work on myself, and I knew how to be patient. I knew how to let her be a kid. Where the other two I didn't. I wasn't. Like I was just too angry. They had to do things my way, and I was always worried about, what the reflection of me as a parent. How they were and how they acted in public. Whereas Shaylee, man, she's taught me so much patience, and also because my partner had been sick, she got really, really sick, and I looked after her for a while. She had Crohn's disease, and they told her she'd never have kids again. So so Shaylee was literally like a gift from God, a miracle baby, and she's
Beautiful.
such a different kid.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's really it's also awesome story. And so basically, you have experienced 3 completely different types of being a dad. One you were a junkie, the other one you were alcoholic, and then the third one you were normal. What normal is in this context. You mentioned about everything changed after that training, and that's the training quantum shift. What does it mean? What can you tell us more about what this training is, and how it works, and what the benefits are from it?
It's a process. Yeah, cool. It's a talking process. So using the intellect to act the heart. So it's an emotional process more than anything else. And basically, we go and we show people that how we develop our stories based on a lie. So like for me, I had this, that my dad doesn't love me. I mean, I think this actually was impregnated from this. I had a memory when I was 6 years of age. I went running into the lounge to give my dad a hug and a kiss goodnight. And my sister had been to it, so she was in the lounge first. She was on, and a kiss goodnight. And then I went running in to do the same, and he jumped out of his chair and he was like, "Whoa, stop, whoa, whoa, whoa!" And I was like, "What?" And he was like, "That's not what real men do." He said, "Real men do," and he held my hand out, and I was like, "I want a hug and a kiss. Lee ain't got one." And he said, "No, I'm all for that shit now." No, like I said, it was 6, I just remember in that moment thinking, wow, my dad doesn't love me anymore. Like my dad loves my sister more, or, like he thinks I'm not tough. And I knew from that, because I was a really sensitive kid. I'd cry all the time, I'd cry at the drop of a hat. And so he was trying to toughen me up, and like in the hardest ways, So my story that I started to develop was I'm not lovable, like my dad doesn't love me. I'm not good enough. I'm not strong, like I'm weak, I'm pathetic. My dad, my dad's this big tough guy. And also I never ever stood up to dad. So he, like I remember when I was 9 years of age, 9 years of age, eating my porridge one morning, Sunday morning at the table, and I could hear them starting to yell and argue in the bedroom again, and then I started to shake and freeze, like I would just freeze. Because my dad's so angry, and so so he's a big guy, and then the argument worked its way up the hall and then into the kitchen, and then my dad had my mum by the throat up against the cupboards, and he's banging her up against the cupboards and ramming, because she hadn't done his washing properly or something, and he was, had a singlet, he's ramming in her face, and then he dragged her into the wash house and he's punching her over the washing machine. And I was just frozen with fear. And even my little sister, who was only 2 at the time, went running in, and she was like beating him, hitting him, and going, "Get off my mummy, get off my mummy!" And he just kicked her out of the way. And I just remember thinking in that moment, fuck, even my 2-year-old is more courageous than me. I just couldn't even move my body, and it's almost like I'd sunk so far inside my body that I couldn't move, And then when I finally could, and then Dad,
an amazing impact on a child.
Say that again.
That must have been an amazing impact to have on a child, on that age, and experience that's gonna program your brain and your belief system in a negative way.
Yeah, massively. Yeah, and then that became my whole story for life. Is I'm a coward, I'm weak, I'm pathetic, I'm useless. And then the dominant man and the strong man, the powerful man. My perception then were the ones who were a man. So I kind of my life, but I even go
breaking up.
Dad slammed the door and gone out, and then I went up. Okay, you sat out. Oh no.
Yeah,
I'll go back in here and see if it makes a difference.
You're back again. You got frozen. But
Better now?
I think I got the context of your story. You know that as a child you have this negative experiences basically with people who you look up to, like your parents, or people who are close to you, and basically people who shape you as a kid. That is like they mold you into this human being that you are, that you will become. And then if something goes wrong there, or you're not getting the attention or the love that they're supposed to give you, then you get this limiting beliefs that kind of hold you back the rest of your life. So how did those experiences affect you in a way that basically turned you into this tough guy, this construction worker, or basically made you grab to become an addict, basically? Is it in a
Well, I think it
way of
was,
escaping, or is it a way of healing? How does that work?
well, for me, it was like, I mean, my journey was then, because I stayed very on, I'm not good enough, I'm unworthy, I'm unlovable. And then started, like I had to look to other guys who were powerful and who could give me love in a sense, like, so I'd always follow the alpha male, got involved with bikies and I'd always hang around there with the cool guys and try to fit in with them. And I never really did, but that's kind of how I got involved with the drugs sort of things. And then when I drank and took drugs, I started to have this false sense of security, like they gave me this boost of confidence because I felt so weak and pathetic and, like, and with no courage, and it suddenly gave me this false sense of courage. So then I turned to that for courage. And then the more I turned to for courage, the less courage I had. And, so then it just kind of was this self-fulfilling prophecy of,
This
and
negative
then
spiral.
so I think then the quantum shift, like it showed me we went back to the story and it actually obliterated that story. Like it was like my perception of my dad not loving me was the opposite of what my dad was doing back then. When my dad, I don't know what he'd heard at work that day, I knew back then he was really homophobic, and that was a new thing. Everyone was scared of your kids being gay, and back then if you mollycoddle your kids or hug your kids at night, then you're you can't do that with your kids anymore. So his perception was he was just loving me, like he was loving me in the best way he knew how. I was the one who made a story out of it that I'm not lovable, that I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
Can you hear me
so
okay still? I notice I'm freezing up a bit.
Yeah, you're freezing up sometimes, but I can hear you still. And so basically what you're saying is it's not your dad's fault. He's doing his best with the tools that he has as a person. He just tries with his own belief system. He tries to do his best, and then we as the receiver, basically, especially when we're a kid, we just create this whole world and belief system around it, and that maybe isn't even true. Does it make
I mean, a lot of it isn't true. So the way, it's actually developed on a lie. Like it's we think, that we internalize it as them making us not good enough. But I mean, 99% of the time, parents are trying to give us a thing that they never had, or they're trying to save us from through. So that, their intention is unconditional love. We take it as not love. So I'm not loved. I'm not good enough. Like I'm, like they're trying to change me. They don't like me the way I am. So then it creates all of this friction in the relationship. And so, I mean, one of the best things I get to do with this process, like I get to take people through. I just did one this morning with a lady in Perth, actually. And, like her whole story she'd made, she became like and very similar to me, thought her dad didn't love her because her dad had abandoned her. And but then what it does is it takes her back and shows her there's a bigger picture going on. And it shows you that the universe doesn't make mistakes. Like we think the universe is over here performing this miracle while this other abuse or whatever else it was going on. It's like, come on, like if God is omnipresent and universe, spirit, whatever we want to call it, is omnipresent, omnipotent, everything happens for a reason. So when we find that reason and find the love in it, changes everything.
Yeah, beautiful. Yes, it's great. I hadn't heard of it before, but it's definitely something I'm going to look into, quantum shift. So you have been you wrote a book. Did you write one book, or did you wrote more books?
I've written and published one. I'm going to go outside again just to see if the Wi-Fi's better. I've written and published one book called Shoot Up, which is kind of an autobiography, and I'm halfway through my second book, which is called Barefoot in Bali. And it's because I've been barefoot now for about 7 years. I haven't worn shoes. So all about my journey in Bali and how I got here and why I'm here and what's happened. Yeah.
Interesting. So that's going to be a memoir as
all
well.
the stuff that you...
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
What about Shoot Up? Shoot Up, right? Yeah. What is that about?
Shoot Up is a story about, I mean, it's about my life, and it's more about how I became the way, you know, how I got into addiction, how I became a junkie, alcoholic, and then how I turned that around. So all of the little nuances and the stories and the, you know, the things that happened to me throughout my life that played into me becoming such a, you know, like so full on as a junkie. And got so lost and so stuck, and in my perception, you know, I was in the bottom rung of society, you know, like I was the lowest of the low that I could get, stealing from people, stealing from my partner, child, you know, breaking into people's houses and stealing and selling, you know, gear, and just locked up, you know, arrested by the police loads of times and locked up, and then ultimately facing 7 years jail. And lock up. And so Shoot Up's all about that, but then how I then flip that around and all these little insights that I had to get about life and about, you know, about how things are really, and that I can actually change stuff, that I actually have the power inside of me. That was the biggest thing I got from the quantum shift. I thought I had no, you know, I was weak, I was pathetic, I was, you know, I had no courage, I had no, because my dad had all of that, because he was the big strong guy and I was the little weak guy. And this quantum process showed me that I had to have, you know, inside of me to do that, you know, like how a little kid get through a life like that without having courage and strength to carry on, without having resilience and determination and fight to continue, you know, like, and it was like, what? It was like just so, it blew my mind. I was like, but I've never had this my whole life. I'm not courageous. I'm not. And I fought him when he was trying to, you know, show me this, and I was like, no, I didn't. And then the more he asked, you know, like, well, if there's another little kid sitting here who went through what you went through, would you say he was? I was like, my God, yeah, fuck yeah, you know, that takes so much.
Is it
so
a way
this thing that I thought I
basically
was missing my whole life with?
is it a way that basically you
Say
have
again?
given when you had given away control, basically a responsibility, gave it to your father?
Yeah, handing over my total control, my power, that I'd handed over, but then suddenly finding that control switch again, finding that back within inside of me. I don't know if that answers your question, if I got that right. If I understood you right, but yeah, it's pretty much exactly that. It's like refinding that power inside of myself, and this is what I guess most people, we've handed it over somehow, and then what happens is, because we perceive that we don't have it, so when we get into a relationship, we expect the other person to give it to us. So the things when I met my mother of my children, you know, the things that I loved about her were the very things that I thought were missing in me. So I loved her. She was, you know, strong, courageous. She was independent. She was outspoken. You know, and all of those things are the things that I really loved. But then another thing I really hated about her in the end, because she couldn't give them to me. So the reason I loved them, it was like, because I expected her to be able to give me those, and can she? They were hers.
You were still giving away the control. You're still responsibility and control, still projecting it up to another person. Yeah. Is that
inside of yourself still?
Yeah, the connection is really bad. Is that a bit also a lot of the times the elephant in the room when you work with couples, that there's some dysfunction between the roles of the people in the relationship?
Yeah, definitely. Because then because then I'm looking to her all the time to try and fill me, to try and make me whole, to try and meet my needs, you know, so that I feel better. And then it becomes very codependent, you know. So like I need her. I need to be in a relationship. And this is, I think, then you know, then those elephants in the room just don't get spoken about, and we just walk around those elephants, pretend that they're there, and you know that everything's okay, and you know, we can manage, you know, like and kind of like for me it was like I was living from the headspace of trying to fix everything all the time, and logic doesn't always work because I've got so much built up emotion that needed to be processed and that needed to do in this trauma that logic alone doesn't do it, you know. So it was also a case of releasing the emotion, the energy of it all as well, you know, like there's so much more than just the brain and the memory. It's a cellular memory as well that's stored in there.
Is there
yeah
how does addiction start? Is there usually use the word blueprint for something positive, but is there are some people more prone to getting addicted than other people, or how does it start?
There's definitely degrees of addiction. I mean, one of the things I do is I do talks on addiction, like the neuroscience of addiction, and one of my goals with that is to change the way I see addiction, because you know this model that we have at the moment is a shame and a punitive judgment model that just pushes a person further into the addiction. And the first thing we think here, addiction is drugs and alcohol, but there are so many other things. You know, everyone has an addiction to something. Telephones, especially nowadays, are a huge addiction. You know, like social media, Tinder, work, money, exercise. Yeah, totally, absolutely. I can. I've got to physically, consciously put it away and manage that. Food, you know, food addiction, sugar. So understanding that everyone has an addiction to something, and then it kind of changes the way we look at it. And then how do we do that? And then we definitely have some things that are stronger than others. I think it's Gabe Mate says, not everyone who's experienced trauma becomes an addict, but every addict has experienced trauma. And so it's generally the trauma that, you know, that people are trying to fill, like it's a void that we have, a missingness inside, something that wasn't filled. And often it's a not feeling safe, not feeling protected, not feeling looked after. Or,
I lost you again.
Or not being seen, not being, you know, like not matter.
Yeah. It's
I
can hear you now. Yeah. It's I'm not sure all the walking
Welcome
around
to Bali, baby.
Yeah. I know it's.
Is it better walking around?
No, I don't think it's better. I think it's makes it worse even. But I know how it is. You know, my office in Bali in the villa. Also, sometimes I just can't do any calls there. But yeah, we're managing. It's a good thing it's a live with video. For a podcast, it wouldn't be good enough. Yeah. Can you hear me? You can hear me again?
I can hear you now. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Do you think there's a connection between personality types and addiction?
Personality and addiction?
Yeah. Are certain personality types more prone to get addicted?
I mean, it's an interesting question. Like I've got an addictive personality. But I think when it comes, if we're talking about trauma, because there's so many different types of people as well, you know, so I think it definitely comes down to experience and trauma in the past. But I think there's definitely people who, you know, like, I mean, for me, lack of boundaries, you know, people who don't know how to set boundaries in their life definitely can become a lot easier. People who, you know, like I didn't have boundaries for myself. And it was mostly because I had such a, you know, like a strong dad, and, you know, he was so controlling that I wasn't allowed to be myself, and that I felt like, you know, it was always his way or the highway. There were so many rules in life, and, you know, like I had, you know, couldn't even speak, you know, I wasn't even allowed to show any emotion. So, like, for me, as soon as I left home, like, I was like, nobody's going to tell me what, you know, how it's going to be anymore. Suddenly it was like I had the free choice, but I wasn't a very good adult to myself, you know. So I decided I could do whatever I wanted, no matter what, even, and to the degree where it actually hurt people, you know, and it affected other people. But I just became so selfish because I didn't know how to set boundaries, and not realizing those boundaries were healthy for me. You know, that was actually for my sake, those boundaries work. So now in life, it's about how do I set boundaries for my life to work in a much better way, not only for me, but for people around me, you know. understanding that I can have boundaries and I can still have an amazing life. I can have life actually because I have boundaries.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
The reason why I ask is because very popular at the moment is human design. Of course, people, especially in Ubud, I hear everybody talk about human design. When I was in college, I got familiar with the Enneagram, and Enneagram has 9 types of personalities, and some of them, when you heard of the Enneagram. Could you hear me?
Sorry, brother, I'm getting every second word, but I think you said something about human design. And was it one of the human designs or?
No, I was saying human design is very popular at the moment in Ubud, and I hear everybody talk about human design. My personal favorite, personal character model is the Enneagram. That's what I'm familiar with. And I know in the Enneagram, certain personality types, when they are in the lower levels, they are prone to addiction. They grab to substances quicker than other personality types. That's why I asked that question. If you see any correlation, any connection between the two. And then, I don't know if there is any.
It definitely exists. Yeah, I'm sure it definitely exists. Like even gene keys, like human design gene keys, where they talk about there's definitely the side and then the shadow side of type. I haven't specifically nailed, like a certain specific type, but it's more, for me, it's more just, noticing people that have trauma, like that have experienced that trauma that's definitely affected the addiction. So I'm sure there would be personalities who are more affected than others, but yeah, I haven't looked into that. And even astrology, I mean, I think astrology plays a big part in it as well, that I'm not familiar with, but there are a lot of experts who do that. Yeah.
Me neither. No. And how do you think about, do you think there's a connection between addiction and spirituality?
Last part, a connection between addiction and
spirituality.
Cut out at the exact time. Do I think there's a connection between addiction and
spirituality?
Spirituality.
Yes.
Is that what you said? A connection between addiction and spirituality?
Yes, that's what I said.
I think it's very closely, weirdly enough. I think it's, and I think a lot of trauma in life is as well. I think, people who've experienced a lot of trauma, sometimes we can take it as it's such a bad thing, and it's so far away from spirituality or, from life and what I'm meant to be going through. And yet I think there's a saying, when you think you're furthest away, when you think you're so far out of control, God, whatever you want to call it, that you're most in control. When you think you're really in control, it laughs because it knows you're nowhere near in control. So I think it's those moments, like the deepest, darkest moments. And I've recognized myself where, where I feel the most lost is actually probably the closest, like in terms of closest to myself, closest to, to the dare, but closest to the guilt and the deep horror. So in a weird way, they were the insights and the other moments where I really get to experience life and get to experience myself at a deeper level than everything's fine, everything's good, I've got everything under control, I'm all okay, like it's the moments of deep despair sometimes, it's interesting. And I've been through it lately, it's been a rough few months actually with what's going on in the world now, making meaning of all this. And I'm sure I speak to a lot of people who are struggling right now because it's so uncertain that we have no control at the moment. But the plus side of that is people have had to stop and ask themselves, well, am I really happy? Am I doing what I really want to be doing? Am I in the relationship that I really want to be in? Am I living life the way I really want to? Or I just kind of just living, getting by, am I just kind of existing and not really living, So I think now we've had to take stock and go, fuck, we've taken so much for granted, I've taken freedom for granted. Most of us had this amazing freedom where we could travel, do whatever we want. Well, half the population or half of humanity couldn't do anything and didn't have the money or the resources or the the freedom to be able to move in the way we do. So yeah, so it's been an interesting time of actually real deep diving and experience deep, like the deep shame and guilt and things that are still beneath the surface that I didn't know were there, and allowing these to come out and allowing like finding those darker parts of me that wasn't experiencing love or that needed light shined on it. So so that it actually gets to and feel good as well. So it's been it's really interesting. Give me 2 seconds. I'll just get a visitor and I'll Bali. People just rock up in Bali. Yeah, so it's been an interesting time, and speaking to a lot of people who've been struggling recently with the same thing. So,
Yeah. Well, it is Bali. People just rock up. I heard.
Does that answer the question?
I'm not sure actually. It's an interesting topic, and I asked it because I see a lot of people in Ubud who are there on a personal spiritual path, trying to connect with themselves again, but having had addiction in the past. So they had a trauma that in their case, and you mentioned trauma, so thank you for clarifying that, because of course everybody who has had trauma could come in Ubud to go on a spiritual journey to find themselves. But I saw and talked to a lot of people, mainly men, who were having an addiction problem, either alcohol or drugs, and then are in Ubud to basically find spiritual enlightenment or find the answer in Ubud. So that's why I asked if there's any connection between the two.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point because it's like I've met a lot of functioning addicts. I don't necessarily just because I know judges and lawyers and and police officers, and people who are high end corporate execs who are addicts who still operate like that. And yeah, definitely in Ubud, I've also met a lot of addicts here, who are very spiritual. And I think everybody has their shadow. I think I don't know that it's a like a direct thing to do with spirituality or action, but yeah, there's definitely people here who, in the world, I think who we present a certain way and don't necessarily live that certain way, or we try to present what it is that we think people like and want, and portray ourselves in a certain way. But I think it's about now, how do I don't even know if this is answering if I've got the gist of your question, but I don't know. I think it's now how do I live live my life in the most authentic way, even though I kind of think is spirituality for me. I think even a bum who's drinking out of a brown paper bag on the gutter is spirituality. Spirituality is an expression of life experience in itself. So whether that's in an amazing way, in a wholesome, helpful, positive way, or even in a dark way. So are there times in my life where I wasn't ever spiritual? Maybe not.
No, I don't think so.
The whole thing is spirituality. God, universe, in itself.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Make sense? Did I answer your question, or did I just go way off?
Yeah, no. It makes sense, and I agree with that. But this is a topic we can talk a lot about, I think. But you're right. Everybody is going through their own spiritual growth, but most people don't see it that way, because spirituality is this word that's somewhere out of reach. They have no idea. They don't want to be connected to the word. They find it woo-woo or whatever. So, but yeah, personally, I think everybody is on this spiritual growth path, aware of unaware. So, how did your own addiction contribute to your spiritual growth? Yeah, you're unmuted now.
Sorry, bro, I lost most of that. How did
your journey with it?
It's like we're talking in a bubble.
Yes, there's
My
Bali.
journey with addiction affect my spiritual growth, I think.
Yeah, how did it? Yeah, how did it contribute to your spiritual growth?
Contribute to my. I think it definitely helped me to understand that there's definitely a bigger, something else guiding me. Like, I mean, oh my God, I think I definitely should have died many times, and I think I have died many times. But I think so many close calls in my life that I was guided. Like, and I know, like, and even those like where I know it was too close. Like it was like something else. There was divine guidance there. And I remember stopping afterwards and just going, "Oh my God, thank you for whatever that was that just did that. Thank you." Like it was just too real to not get it. But I think the fact that I went so low and so deep helps me to be able to connect with other people who have been there or who are in that moment, in that space, and know what they're going through, and then know how to help them. Like and in my way or in a way, how to give them tools and some strategies, and if they want that help. So I think like it's helped me, and definitely in that sense, I know how to sit with a person. I know how to sit with a person who's met relationship up, like who feels like a dad, who's drinking too much, who's using too much, who's carrying a lot of shame and guilt, who feels lost, who feels unproductive, who feels like a failure in society, who all of that. I think so. All of that enables me to be able to really sit with a person, somebody who feels hate, who hates their body, who doesn't feel good, and actually show like there's a different reality that's possible, and this is all we have to do. Like there's some steps, some tried and measured steps that we can take that actually help us to do that, to get out of that.
Yeah. It's a long answer. Thank you. I missed a little bit of it because of the connection that's breaking up. That's unfortunate. I really is unfortunate that today, when we have this conversation, the internet is such so crappy. Before you round up, because we're going close to an hour now. Men's circles. I'm not sure. There's also women watching this, of course, and but you also were saying something about mixed circles. Can you tell a little bit more about what men's circles are for you, and what the mixed circles are about, and what basically they bring for people?
I heard men's circle and mixed circle and all of that, so I'll talk about I'll talk about running men's circles and mixed circles. So, I mean, like the truth is, I started to run men's circles, especially here in Ubud, because I needed more men in my life, and my perception of men was always a scary one. Like violent, angry father. I didn't have a good role model, and then chasing the alpha male all the time. So I had lots of female friends in my life. I could connect with the feminine really easily, and as nice as that was lovely. I've got a twin sister. We're really close. I've had a wet sense, where I just tried to please everyone, and I became a new age sensitive guy, and that's not what they wanted, and then I just didn't feel like I was being authentic either. So I knew I needed more masculine energy in the men's circles. Like it's just creating this space, where we sit and we just try and talk about real stuff, what's really going on in our lives, not just sports and cars and TV and but real, like I'm struggling with this, or this is going on, and then no advice. Yeah. And so no advice giving or no trying to fix anybody, and it's just sharing real, like what's really going on. And there's a value. I realized just the fact that we get to say that in front of other men. So to be witnessed by men talking about on the value in that, and a lot of guys say, "Oh my God, I've never said that out loud." And there's something really cool about just saying that to other men. Whereas normally we think we're going to fix it ourselves and do it all ourselves. But they sort of have that reflect. Yeah. Sorry, brother.
Nothing.
I don't
I
say
just
something. But
commented
had that
it after.
reflected back. Yeah, you go.
Sorry, bro. I broke. Sorry, I did break you up. Sorry. Yeah, just go ahead. You were doing great.
It's okay.
You were explaining perfectly.
It's not your fault, brother. It's the internet. It's really, really, really challenging. So, yeah, and then having that what we've spoken about get reflected back. You know, a lot of guys say, "Wow, I thought I was going." You know, like I thought it was just me experiencing this. So then suddenly not feeling alone, and then not needing to be fixed as well. Because I've done a lot of different men's work where we process and we do different stuff. You know, that to try and it's almost like trying to fix me. If you're trying to fix me, then I'm broken. So I think there's value is being heard and witnessed and being seen in whatever it is that I'm in, and not trying to fix it, because then I'm okay as I am. And then the mixed circles, I think, is really cool, because then, you know, like I think way behind the eight ball when it comes to, you know, opening up and talking about feelings and sharing what's really going on. So and then, you know, like, so women do this naturally anyway. So then to bring the men and the women together, then there comes this kind of, it's almost like this completeness or this healing. You get to be witnessed by the feminine and also witness the feminine, and how it is for them and their journey. And I mean, and the ironic thing most people talk about at the end of these, like the really beautiful sessions, like is that everybody's looking for love. You know, everybody's the same thing. We want to be seen, we want to be heard, we want to be connected, we want to be loved, but it's lost in translation, it's lost in communication. So I think those really help us to learn how to communicate in a way that we both feel heard and valued and understood. And one of the things that I love about relationships, relationship coaching, is getting people back to the place where they're valued in their relationship, where they want to be there, not just because they're there because they think they have to be, and there's no other choice, you know, but because they want to be there and they want to see each other in their highest light. You know, like I want to be with a partner who sees me in my highest light, and I want to see her in her highest light. I want to see her like my queen, like my beloved. And then if I can see her like that, even when she's not acting like that, if I can see her like that, she'll remember to be like that. And the alternative to that is, you know, like in the past where I've seen them at their worst and tried to negate them and point out all their flaws and, you know, and you do this and you do that, and then undermine them all the time. And then that's what I'm getting back, you know, like I'm getting this horrible, you know, limited version of who it is, you know, that they are. So yeah, that's one of my goals with relationships, is to help people really love to be there and be there because they want to be there.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, that's awesome. And then basically the men's circles is even that's not the mixed circle, but the men's circle is helping with that as well, because the men who are struggling, for example, with a relationship, they can express themselves and be heard by other men, and take that home with them and work on themselves. And I guess in a mixed circle, is it a mixed circle always partners together, or is it can be also single people?
Yeah, single people and couples. So we've had people come, like married couples, yeah, just partnerships, and then single people come as well. So it's like everybody and anybody, and yeah, we just get, and it's a gold in that as well. I mean, it's cool when you come as a couple, because you get to be with other people, and you get to watch your partner, you know, like just communicate with other people as well. And there's real value, and then coming back together, and they talk about, you know, on the way home, and their conversation, the level of conversation is so much deeper and so much for, you know, like they talk about stuff that's been pretending wasn't really, and yeah, real value in that.
Yeah, definitely. I think it can also be a bit scary, but yeah, definitely very variable for everybody to go through it. I love the men's circles. You know, I'm there every week. I just get a lot of value out of it. For me, it's yeah, a way to not only be with other men, but also a bit of me time that I can use to reflect, listen to others without judgment, feeling heard, showing emotions, showing what what I'm struggling with in life. So that's pretty cool. So I think that's awesome that you have set it up.
And did you mention that you also facilitate as well, that you're one of the leaders?
No, I didn't mention that.
Which is amazing too, because it's great. Because even
Yeah,
for me,
yeah.
like, I mean, because I started these in facilitate, but I've taught other people how to facilitate. So it's really cool to sit in a group with you and not have to facilitate myself, and I get to be a participant, so that I get to share as well, and you know, like, and to be held and seen. And the whole idea of me running the circles wasn't, I didn't want it to be mine. Or for me to be just the leader. You wanted to share that around, and then so it's also a blessing to be able to sit in your circles and and experience you in that way.
Yes, definitely. I really enjoy doing it. It's a part of my personal spiritual growth as well. You know, to open up, to share my own emotions. To I've always been somebody who basically kept my emotion inside, and that has worked against me. You know, I had probably different limiting beliefs. I was conditioned in a different way, and my conditioning since I was been a child led me to not showing emotions, and not showing these emotions led to physical problems and burnout and all this kind of stuff. So me becoming a member of a men's circle, and then afterwards facilitating them, that has definitely helped me on my part and forward. And I find it a joy and a pleasure, and also an honor to keep on organizing these circles and help other men with them all around the world. And here in Australia, set up the live ones and stuff. So thank you for that. It's pretty cool. I think we're gonna wrap it up. Is there any last things that you want to talk about, that you want to share?
No, only that I agree with exactly what you just said, and I think it's because it's through us sharing experience that changes the dynamics for somebody else. You know, like, it's not having to be the expert, or you having to be the expert and know how to run and facilitate, but you sharing your story. I think it's us sharing our genuine self, our genuine truth, our genuine story that actually helps to shift dynamics of people. I love that. And the other thing I'd just say really quickly is it's not as weird, and you know, like, a lot of guys think, oh, men's circle sounds really woo-woo and sounds really scary, and a lot of guys don't come for. I've noticed, like, I'll talk to guys, I'll invite them for years sometimes, and then when they finally come, they're like, oh my God, I wish I'd just come years ago. It's so cool. It's genuine men, like, talking real stuff.
It's amazing, and I think it's we haven't got enough of it. So definitely we're gonna keep on running them online. So thank you, Dean. And you're frozen again, so I hope you hear me.
But
I think we should.
It's still like we're underwater, but.
I think we're just gonna do it again soon, you know, with better Wi-Fi. Just there was the warm up, you know. There's a trial run. I think people watch this and people are interested in knowing more. They can reach out to you. They can. Definitely. I think I'm gonna get you on at a different day and time. Maybe we have a better connection then, and we can go dive much deeper into the topics, because it was very, very interesting. But it was unfortunate. Sometimes the connection was just bad, so I apologize for that. Also to the people who are watching, it's Bali. It's all about acceptance. We can't really do about anything, and we in Bali are used to it. That the connection is what it is. So Dean, thank you, and I'm gonna log it off now. You want to say any last words?
No, thank you so much. I do apologize for the Wi-Fi, guys. Normally it's okay. Like, it's the last few days have been a bit different in Bali, so maybe it's something to do with that. And it's Independence Day here in Bali. There's a lot of people using social media. But yes, I love talking about this stuff. I love sharing this stuff. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to reach out. And I'm sure, Michelle, you'll post details of how they can get in contact with me. And and thank you for giving me this opportunity, brother. I love sharing and talking with you, whether it's in men's group or in this format. So thank you, bro.
Same here. Awesome. Thank you.